Good morning. I'm so glad you chose to join us today to learn about the Lieutenant Governor's Computing Challenge. I'm Ellen Savard, Senior Manager of STEM Program for Girl Scouts of Connecticut. With me today are Jennifer Michalek from the Connecticut State Department of Ed, Norm Sondheimer from the Governor's Committee on Women and Girls, and Kristen Violet, computer science teacher from Newtown, who has been instrumental in developing the challenge. I invite any of them to jump in if they see something that they'd like to add as we go along. I'd also like to acknowledge that we had other committee members that contributed to the challenge as well. This webinar is being recorded so you can share it or refer to it again, as there are some helpful links embedded which will benefit you as you work with your students or your members. We'll have time at the end for questions and answers, but if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will monitor that. In a second, I'll play the Lieutenant Governor's introduction to the computing challenge, but to give you a little background, it came about because she and the governor are dedicated to engaging more students in computer science in general and minorities in particular, especially girls. 80% of jobs require computer literacy, so it will greatly benefit our students to feel comfortable with coding. Not to mention that more than half of smartphone users are female, so only makes sense for women to develop programs, games, and apps that appeal to them. By the end of the hour, we will have answered the following questions for you. What is the purpose of the Coding for Good challenge? What does it look like? How can I get my students and members involved? What is the best way to support them? And who will support me? We'll let the Lieutenant Governor answer the first question for us.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Governor Susan Weissowitz. I know these last few months have not been easy as we've addressed a global health pandemic.
We've had to stay safe while staying home. That means we've had to use our kitchen tables as our classrooms, and we've had to connect with friends, family members, loved ones virtually. We've even started to change how we're celebrating our holidays. But if these last few months have taught us anything, it taught us that computer science education is more critical now than ever before.
Last academic year, the Governor's Council on Women and Girls launched the first Lieutenant Governor's COVID-19 Computing Challenge and invited students from grades 3 to 12 to put their ingenuity to good use and submit ideas for socially conscious apps, websites, or computer programs that would defeat the spread of the COVID-19 virus, aid local or global communities, or encourage or inform others.
We received more than 370 entries to the challenge, and one thing is for sure, Connecticut students have the power to make real change.
Now we're asking Connecticut students again to help make a meaningful difference in people's lives by coding for good.
Beginning mid-January, students in grades 3 through 12 will have the opportunity to design a computer technology that will make a positive change in our society.
Whether your submission embraces diversity and encourages individuals to be more inclusive and equitable, reminds residents to care for our environment, addresses some of the biggest issues our state and country are facing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, like food insecurity, we want to hear your ideas that will do good.
I can't wait to see all that you accomplish and the innovative ideas that you bring to the table. And I hope that this challenge inspires a new wave of students to pursue an education in computer science.
The study of computer science can prepare students for high skill, high wage, and high demand careers.
In fact, computing is the #1 source of all new wages in our economy.
And there are currently
400,000 open computing jobs across the US.
I encourage all eligible students to participate in this year's computing challenge.
And I hope this challenge is a fun way for you to engage with each other while learning more about the computer science field
and how we can create good, positive change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing your submissions.
So who is eligible? Youth in grades 3 to 12 living in Connecticut. Students may participate as individuals or on teams. Teams may have up to 5 members, and those members must be in the same age group. Upper elementary, grades 3 to 5, middle school, grades 6 to 8, and high school, grades 9 to 12. The theme for this year's computing challenge is Coding for Good. This aligns with all the Girl Scout coding badges, of which there are 15 in this age range. Coding for Good could come in many forms. Spreading positive messages. Maybe that's an uplifting quote that pops up on your phone daily. Tackling important issues. These should be issues that are important to the individual. There are lots of issues in this world. I'm sure you can name several off the top of your head. But if the issue is something that touches the student, he or she will be more likely to be engaged. And promoting healthy habits. This could be COVID related or otherwise. And maybe COVID has been beaten to death, so you may want to steer your students away from that. But if it's, something that's unique, then I would let them go with it. So where can you find the information on the computing challenge? Let's take a tour of the website. We're going to go there now. You may want to bookmark this as it contains all the information you'll need in order to help your students through the challenge. I'll show you the pages that I think will be most valuable to you, but please do come back and visit the website on your own. And this is where I'll invite my colleagues to jump in if they want me to highlight something in particular that I haven't touched on. So I'm going to try not to give you whiplash, so I'll try to do this slowly. But there's all the information here that you're going to need about the challenge, the timeline, which we'll go through a little bit later, the structure. So there are 3 levels of challenge: the concept challenge, the prototype challenge, and the development challenge. And we'll look at those in more detail. This is where I really want to show you the teachers and club advisors webinars. You can click here. I'll also go back to the top and show you where you can find that information. So I'm going to slowly scroll up so I don't give you whiplash. All right, so here is the student page. So I would suggest that the students poke around here. I am going to show you this video in a little bit, but this gives them an overview of the challenge, what they should start thinking about, how they can participate, the different levels. So this is a great place for you to go and for you to send your students. It'll go into detail about the scoring criteria, about how to submit. So you really want to take a look at that. I think what's going to be most helpful for you is this resources page. This is really rich in all sorts of information that you'll need. The submission tools, you can click on any of these links and those will help you. I'll click on a couple of them to show you. This is at the concept level. This is how you get started. pretty straightforward questions. I think this one's really interesting. If you go to the next level, the prototype challenge, the instructional video playlist, these are videos that will help the students and help you help your students. So this one is really important. And the same with the development challenge. You can look at the criteria. This is what I think will help you the most. These webinars are, the slides and the videos are posted. So the February 9th was an introduction. The February 23rd, this is where Kristen hosted this, and she had two teachers who were introducing how to work with your students, how to get them started. So this one is something you'll definitely want to come back to. This is our webinar. So this will be posted and the slide deck will be posted after this is over. And then there are others coming up, and some of them are still being developed. So this is a great place for you to come back and visit.
Ellen, if I just may add that the
Sure.
webinar for March 9th for resources,
Mhm.
that's going to be rather rich as well. It's a great word that we'll be stepping through a variety of resources that are available online that are free, that will be divided into 3 sections: how to come up with an idea, the ideation portion, how to plan out your idea, and then how to actually create your idea. So if you're unable to make it on Tuesday the 9th, that'll also be recorded. But since we already have one on how to help your students come up with an idea last time, this one will provide a bunch of resources that are available to you to work with your students and members.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you've done a fantastic job with these. All right, so if you continue to scroll down, you get to this additional tools, another really important spot on this website. And we'll talk about this again in a minute, but you can request a mentor. And if you're feeling so inclined, you can be a mentor. The student flyer, I want to highlight this as well. So thank you, Patrice, for working on this. This student flyer, I think, is something that you'll want to forward to your students, post it, share it, you print it and put it up in your offices, your classrooms. So that will be helpful as well to get the word out. I think that I want sponsors, we're going to go over that again. So I think unless is there anything else that you'd like me to highlight here? Okay. All right. So let's go back. So this year there are 3 levels of challenges: the concept challenge, the prototype challenge, and the development challenge. I'm going to show you this video and this is the one that I mentioned that was on the student page.
Welcome to the 2021 Lieutenant Governor's Computing Challenge, Coding for Good. In this challenge, you should identify a societal problem or issue and propose a possible coding solution that spreads positive messages, tackles important issues, or promotes healthy habits. Anyone in grades 3 through 12 are welcome to participate, and teams can consist of 1 to 5 members, but all members must be in the same grade band.
All right.
Now let's break down the differences between the concept challenge, the prototype challenge, and the Development Challenge. If you choose the Concept Challenge, you'll be expected to write written responses to prompts and express your ideas through audio-visual means.
Let me tell you about my Concept Computing Challenge.
If you choose the Prototype Challenge, you will be expected to write written responses to prompts, show evidence of a computing solution plan, create a video, and design a prototype. The prototype must include a user interface of what your program will look like to users, and a working program feature of your app, website, game, or more. Now, the Development Challenge means you fully develop an app, website, game, wearable, or other computing solutions. So for this challenge, you'll be expected to design and fully develop a viable computing solution that could be marketed to potential users, write written responses to prompts, show your user interface of what your program will look like to the users, and program code for a fully functioning app, website, game, etc. And finally, create a demonstration video. For the prototype and development challenges, the coding is language neutral. Therefore, you are welcome to use a text-based or block-based programming language with which you are comfortable. So now that you understand a little more about each challenge, read more about the requirements and choose which you will participate in. We can't wait to see your submissions for the 2021 Lieutenant Governor's Computing Challenge. For more information, visit ltgovcc.org.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to pass the mic to Jennifer Michalik so she can go into a little more detail on each one of these challenge levels. So Jen, just let me know. Whoops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Just let me know when to advance the slides for you.
Sure, and certainly I am happy to give you the, I guess we'll say 5,000 foot view of the challenges. You just have the 10,000 foot view. However, if you really want to get up close and personal, feel free to put a question in the chat. And Kristen has been instrumental in this development. So she knows all the ins and outs of any questions you might have. So our first challenge is the concept challenge. And this really is very similar to the challenge that we did last year that you heard the Lieutenant Governor speak to in the video. The reason for this challenge is we know that there's a huge inequity around computer science experience across the state. And we certainly don't want to exclude any students from having an opportunity to express their own creativity. So in this challenge, students do not need to do any coding whatsoever. They really just need to use the creative process to think about something that affects them in their life, their community, their home, their school, and think about how a coding solution, or in other words, some sort of technology, might be able to address that problem. Based upon that idea, we have a series of questions which they'll answer so that they can explain to us why that's important to them, what inspired them to think that way, and who they think would benefit from their idea. The component that we've added for this year is we're also asking them to create an audio visual piece in order to submit. And the reason for that is we figure what better way to promote technology and coding than to actually require them to use something. And there's so many platforms that are out there that students have experience with and can learn on how to create an audio visual piece. This could be something like a video where they narrate. It could be a slideshow that they present. And it's pretty brief. It's only about 1 more minute in time. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The prototype challenge really is our middle of the road challenge. So this challenge is designed for students who either have little to no coding experience, or perhaps based upon their current commitments, maybe don't think that they can commit to completing an entire production of a coding solution, but they want to actually do some work with coding. This is a great opportunity for our community partners, such as yourselves, to really think about how you can incorporate some coding instruction into your programming and have a product at the end that they can submit. So the foundation of all the challenges is the same. They have to identify that societal problem. In this particular challenge, we're asking them to actually then create a plan that can be demonstrated in a variety of ways, as you see here, a flow chart, a storyboard, drawings, anything that gets that idea into an illustration of what it might look like. Because we know that design is a critical element in production. We are then asking them to create what we're referring to as a prototype. And the prototype is simply, we want them to take their idea and one element of their idea and bring it to life. So they will actually code out one working feature. As a result of that, their video is a little bit more prescriptive in that we're asking that they show us the user interface and that one working feature. We're also asking that they submit their code for that feature because we're really interested to look at how do students go about coding such a solution? How efficient are they? And all of those types of things. And again, there's a series of written responses so that we can get them to do some critical thinking about their solution.
Ready?
Yep. The final and most robust part of the challenge is the development challenge. And what makes this so robust is at the end of this challenge, in order to have a complete submission, we are asking that all submissions have a fully functioning app. How will we know? Well, this video will require that you show the video of your fully functioning app. So this is definitely for those students who are looking for a challenge or who maybe have some extra coding experience under their belt, or perhaps a young entrepreneur who is already thinking about something and wants an opportunity to bring it to full development. This is their opportunity to do that. Regardless of which challenge students participate in, all students will receive a certificate signed by the Lieutenant Governor honoring their participation in this year's challenge. They also become eligible to be highlighted in a recognition event at the end of the submission period. That will most likely occur sometime in June. The details of that are still being worked out. All submissions are due by April 30th. And I think that concludes the 5,000-foot view of the challenges.
Thanks, Jen. I thought it might be helpful to you if we shared some of last year's entries that caught our attention. Last year, the students focused solely on apps that related to solving COVID-19 issues. Norm Sondheimer, who was very involved with last year's challenge, is going to share some of his favorites. Norm?
Thanks, Ellen. As you heard from Connecticut's own Secretary of Education, Cardona, we had a great success last year with over 370 entries. Now, those were generated in just a 3-week period from announcement of the challenge to its conclusion. Many of those entries are superb, but you can see 10 of them discussed in the video on the site shown at the bottom of the slide. But let me mention 3 others so you have something concrete to think about. We had 2 third graders who thought through unmanned temperature checking that could be located at school entries. A student would come near a non-contact thermometer. The reading would go to a computer. If the temperature was normal, the app would open the door to the school to let the student in. But if the temperature was out of range, the school would be notified and able to react. They didn't have to implement it, but this gave third graders a chance to use their imagination to think about what they could do with computing that would make a big difference in their lives. We had a 6th grader present the design of a privacy sensitive contact tracer. Those are very commonly discussed. What was special was his security design to maintain privacy. It was very sophisticated. I was so surprised, I actually checked into his background, and this 6th grader had a business selling apps on the Apple and Google store already. I'm sure he's not the only entrepreneur among our student population. We need to encourage them. So the only ask for concepts, because we only had 3 weeks, we had a surprising number of fully functional apps, games, and websites developed in that period. Perhaps they were already under development, and this just gave them a chance to gain recognition for their thinking, or perhaps we gave them the motivation to do something that they had hoped to do. For example, we had one team that collected tools and created a mobile application directed toward helping teenagers deal with stress and the uncertainties of the pandemic. They had a well-developed set of psychological considerations that the user worked through with questions. And in the end, the user was given links to resources that perhaps could help. It's delightful to see and well considered. It won our fan favorite competition among 12th grade entries. So all our entries were tied to COVID-19. This year, we want to encourage the students, as we've mentioned, to pursue their passion and whatever they think they can achieve to help the world through computing for good. Looking forward to seeing your students' entries.
Thanks, Norm. If you're interested in reading about others, you can use this link at the bottom of the screen, and it'll show you, give you more information about last year's challenge. So as I remember from my teaching days, students want to know, when is it due and how can I get an A? So I can answer the first part of that question. So the submission portals are open now. And the last day we will accept submissions is Friday, April 30th. Then we will spend the month of May reviewing and judging the apps. The judging criteria was developed by Kristen Violet and her team of certified teachers. And finally, we are still working on a culminating event that will take place in June. And as we have more information, it will be shared on the website. So now, how can you help your students? First, I would say introduce them to the website. Let them poke around. Then help them with brainstorm issues. And again, the more the issue touches their own lives, the more thoughtful their solutions will be. And although you don't want to give them any answers or influence them to any great degree, you'll want to discuss the viability of their solutions with them. Is this issue a problem for anybody else? If it's only a problem for you, maybe it doesn't need an app. How do you know it's a problem for other people? Maybe you need to interview people. The webinar recording from February 23rd that I highlighted before gives you lots of great suggestions in getting kids to think outside themselves in the process. Next, they'll need to select a challenge level. It will help them to get started by sketching out their ideas on paper. Draw out each screen in their app. And finally, it's time to choose a platform. Although we encourage students to choose any of the advanced challenges, we anticipate that most participants in after-school programs or Girl Scout troops will be working on the concept challenge. If your students have selected the concept level, here are 3 examples of coding platforms that may help them get started. So in this, in the recording, if you come back to this, these are, there are links embedded here. So you can go to Scratch, you can go to code.org, you can go to MIT App Inventor. For more advanced students, they may choose to work in Java or Python or C++. If you are able to guide them through those, God bless you. That's wonderful. But if not, that brings us to the next slide. How can we help you? When we visited the website, we saw the links to the upcoming webinars and recordings of the previous webinars. So that will be valuable to you. Would connecting with a computer expert help you as the facilitator? This is the link, this second link right here, which can also be found at the bottom of the resources page, which we looked at earlier. The mentors with whom we connect, the mentors with whom we will connect you will be experts who use coding in their professional lives. Sorry. Do your students need help beyond what you are able to offer? Then you want them to use the same link, the same mentor link. The mentors for students will all be currently employed certified teachers who have been fingerprinted and background checked, so you don't have to worry about that. And then if you still have questions after we close today, you can email info@ltgovcc.org. And your inquiry will be directed to the appropriate person on our team. And finally, we'd like to thank the organizations and corporations that gave us monetary support or hours upon hours of their valuable time. EdAdvance, Infosys, Google, AT&T, Microsoft, Connecticut State Department of Education, Talon, Girl Scouts of Connecticut, and of course, the Lieutenant Governor's office. And this is how I feel after all of the information that came my way. But we invite your questions.
So at this time, if you have a question for either myself, Ellen, Norm, or Kristen, please feel free. We're a small group today, so you can unmute yourself and ask, or put it in the chat as I see there's one. So the question in the chat is, can a parent be the mentor, or does the parent, can the parent be the mentor, or does the parent need to be a mentor first? Karen, I'm not sure that I register to be a mentor. No, if you're planning on working with a group of students that you already know, there is no need to register for that. For instance, if I'm going to use Ellen's Girl Scouts, if you're a troop leader, in essence, you're already a mentor. So if you already have the skills needed to assist, by all means, work with those students. So the mentor is really for people who want to do something with this challenge, but either don't possess the skills themselves to be able to support students, or students who don't have an adult in their life who is able to support them through submission. other questions?
I would just like to add that a lot of times, and especially because we're used to seeing a lot of app challenges, that I just want to kind of reiterate that while mobile applications is an acceptable solution, your members may be inclined to create something else. Maybe they want to program some websites, keeping in mind that they should be doing the programming themselves. They might want to create a video or a video game, I should say. And that's an acceptable platform as well, again, as long as they are coding. So sometimes I don't want you to feel hindered by any way if there's not a device or something available for you to test your computing solution on. So it can be a mobile app, it could be a video game, it could be an interactive Python program or Java program. So your variety of choices a little bit broadened, and just encourage students to follow a platform and a solution that they feel most passionate and comfortable with.
If there aren't a lot of other questions, I guess maybe I could ask mine. So good morning, everybody. I think, to tell you the truth, I had heard something about the challenge earlier. It might have been back when it was released, I guess January, but nothing happened to it because it was lost in the shuffle of all of the craziness going on. So I'm talking to you right now from Wilby High School in Waterbury, and I teach video production here. We are sort of back to somewhat of an in-person thing. We have hybrid instruction going on, but a big challenge I've got is engagement of the students right now. I do teach an elective class. Let's just say it was elected for them because of the schedule changes in the pandemic. Most of the kids didn't actually choose it. So, so getting them to engage and participate has been a bit of a challenge. I'm hoping we can try to do some things that'll get interest up. So I'd like to do something with this, and I'm thinking that first option, the concept-based thing, might be a great thing for video production. But again, I'm just learning of this now. I really didn't have a chance to research it. So I will go through the website and see if there's anything there that we can maybe do. But as far as meeting with the people, everything I'd be doing would be pretty much virtual, because I see across a given day around 4 students in person, and everyone else is still doing it remotely. So I'm just wondering how that's worked. If anybody can speak to that, if they have had people engage virtually.
So I want to have Kristen address the virtual component, because she too is a high school teacher. So she certainly can feel your pain in the pandemic time. And then when Kristen's done with that, I'm going to follow up with kind of an extra special carrot that we have for districts like Waterbury. Go ahead, Kristen.
So yeah, Brian, I definitely feel your pain. The struggle is real. Engagement online is a challenge. I mean, just answering a question, it's like crickets, right? So I can appreciate that. So I would encourage you a couple things. First of all, most of the tools that we're going to be kind of informing you about in next webinar, most of them are online, and we're encouraging that. While there is some value, some face-to-face, so there's a lot of ideation tools and development tools that you can do with students online, and it allows them producing something. So that might naturally provide some engagement. And then I'm assuming you use Google Meets, and then perhaps you can put them in different breakout rooms and they can use one of these tools in a smaller setting. So that could help engagement for you, because a lot of times you're like, oh, let's come up with an idea, and no one wants to respond. But if you put them in a smaller group and say, we're going to give you 20 minutes to play with this tool to come up with a problem, that identify a problem. And I always ask my students, like, when you woke up today, what's something that you're like, oh, or geez, I wish, and those are problems they're identifying, and they may seem minuscule, but they can actually blossom into something quite significant. So those online tools will hopefully help with engagement. In regards to being in a video class, I think that's amazing that you are going to be able to dovetail this challenge with your curriculum quite nicely. You've already identified that the concept challenge is a great starting point, and those online tools, there's about 4 or 5 of them that we'll be acknowledging. And of course, there's plenty out there in addition. Those will help with the ideation process. And there's an audiovisual component that really dovetails nicely with your curriculum, right? They're in video production. So yeah, sure, maybe they didn't choose your elective. I get that. But they're all on Snapchat. They're all on TikTok. They like to record themselves. So I would encourage you to embrace that platform and be like, hey, why don't you all create a TikTok about your idea, and just kind of embrace the platforms that they're organically drawn to. Furthermore, I think that you might not want to just shut the door quite yet on the prototype challenge, because you may find that they're into video game design. Maybe they use Game Maker, for example, or maybe they've used an hour of code or pencil code or some of the other tools that will be, again, Ellen brought up a few of them on her slide, code.org, App Inventor, etc., or Scratch. They've had probably experience with that in an earlier grade, but they might be into just programming just a single feature, and they might be really into drawing out what the user interface would look like.
Maybe they might be, yes.
Yeah, so you might have, if you have a group of, let's say, 12 kids to keep it nice, and you have 3 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 3, maybe 2 of those groups go in for the ideation or the concept challenge, and maybe one of them has somebody that wants to draw it out. So I would encourage them to kind of think about both of them, because if you have any artistic skills, and that might be something that you want to draw upon, create a Google form that allows them to express what they're good at. Like, I like to write stories. I like to draw. I like to paint. I like to play video games. And as soon as you start to see their natural talents, then maybe that can form some grouping, and you can draw on those natural talents to align them with the challenge and your class, because both of them, the prototype and the concept challenge, have the students making a video. So it's a really nice marriage between these 2 programs. So, and I'd be happy to talk to you a little bit more about that. But those are just kind of some things that just come to mind on the spot here. So I can follow up if that sparked anything in your brain while I was chatting, or Jennifer can provide you with a little carrot.
So I completely agree with everything that Kristen said. I think starting with that concept challenge is a great idea. And then, depending upon how your timing looks, perhaps you can even think of some way to incentivize your own students to take it to that next level. And speaking of incentives, what we are allowing for our opportunity districts, which, as you're probably aware, Waterbury is one, is as long as one school has a participation in the challenge, the district will be receiving a set of Google VR readers that will be donated to the district, which then they can disseminate. Perhaps if there's only one school that did it, they give it to that school. That will be up to the district's discretion. But Google has been a great supporter of this, and that is one way in which they're doing it. Your leadership in Waterbury has been made aware of that, and will be made aware of it again when we hit monitoring meetings at the State Department. So there is another question regarding, it would be nice if there was a video differentiating, the prototype and the development challenge. So I'm certainly interested in some more because we want to do whatever we can do to help. However, I do want to let you know that on that resource page that Ellen mentioned, there is a video playlist that goes through both the prototype and the development challenge how-to videos. So that may be one way. And I also think, and Kristen, you might correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I've been there. I believe that we do have a video that describes the differences between the two when the students get to Launchpad.
There is a brief mention of it, but primarily to keep in mind, and maybe we can look back at our articulation on the website, is that between the prototype and the development challenge, the main difference is developing one or more features versus developing the entire solution. Now, it depends on the scope of the project. Those could be closely related, aligned, and maybe even overlap. So the thing to keep in mind when developing your video for either the prototype or the development challenge is that the judges will need to see your work, right? So if it's the prototype, we want to see your user interface and the program that you've, the program feature that the students or the members have developed and programmed themselves. And with the development challenge, we're going to want to see all of the features that the students programmed themselves. Now, of course, we're not limiting the prototype challenge for just only one developed student feature. So if they develop 3 or 4, it could kind of align closely with the development challenge. So I think naturally it is closely related, but if depending on what your students develop or members develop, if it's just one feature, then they want to show and tell. The way you might want to propose it to your students is, this is the time to show off what you did, right? Sell us your ideas, show us all your skill set, because we really want to celebrate all of the development that the students did, no matter how far they got, and whether that be in the interface design or the programming, we want to admire and celebrate all of it. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit.
Are there any other questions? I see that we're approaching the end of our hour with everyone. So we want to make sure if there's any last minute questions hanging there that we address them. And if not, we encourage you, as Ellen said, take a look at our website. If you have more questions, there is an email address that you can send those questions to. And on behalf of the Lieutenant Governor's Office, those of us on the planning team are looking forward to seeing all the great work that you've encouraged your students to do by participating in this challenge. Thank you for your time today.